Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful little break there. I went and had a bit of lunch and got myself a big cup of tea because I noticed that my throat was really scratchy and horrible, and it meant that my speech was coming out a bit weird. It kind of hurt a little bit to talk, but there we go. Right, okay, so now that we're back, this is going to be I'm going to put my mouse pointer here rather than all the way over there. So what I'm thinking of for this part, if I scroll back over here, whoops, I've pushed the wrong button there. If I go over there, there we go. So what we're going to be doing here in this one is I'm going to be live coding and talking through my ideas behind this issue on GitHub. I raised this a few days ago. And the idea is that I have this open source project for injecting OWASP suggested security headers into responses that are generated in an ASP.NET Core application. And I've noticed that when I initially designed it, I designed it so that it would read a JSON file for configuration, and that worked fine for the time. But I want to make this so that is a configuration time setting, and the problem with that is that as soon as you change any of those settings, the app will then restart. Let me just sort this eyebrow out, it's really annoying. There we go. It will the app will restart and you'll lose all of your session and all that kind of stuff. So what I want is, since the application settings for the OWASP middleware should only ever really be set once, and that's when the app starts, I'm going to change it to a build time setting. And to do that, I'm going to be looking into implementing the builder pattern and a fluent-like interface. So the idea is, if I go over to my source code and go to startup. So in this project, I have in this repo, I have 3 projects. Where are they? 3? We're 3 projects. So I've got the OwaspHeaders.Core, which is the actual source code for the middleware. I've got OwaspHeaders.Core tests, which is unit tests for the middleware, which are used for test-driven development and to make sure that my code actually compiles and does stuff. And then I have an example project. Now the example project is an MVC application. It's a standard ASP.NET MVC application. There's nothing special going on. It implements the middleware. It uses an instance of the middleware in its HTTP request pipeline, and that's what I use for. I use that and the test libraries for testing that the application works, because there are some things that are not so. It's still testable. It's just not as easy to test with unit tests. So I use the example project and I use Chrome to run it, and then I check the requests and responses to make sure that they have the right headers. So what I'm going to do first is I really should have got these links ready, but what I have, if I log into here, so if I go to my blog and I search for middleware first. So on the blog, I've written an article about how the middleware pipeline works, with some extremely very well done images to show off how it all works. So if I scroll past all of this, where are we? There we go. How wonderful are these images? I know you're thinking, spared no expense, right? But so it's worth having a look through these. So I'll put these in the chat window. So if I go like this, so that's one of my links. So this is a description on how the middleware pipeline works. And then if I go back a step, can I do that with this mouse? Probably. So I then took some time and wrote up the process. Oh, hi Tony Banana 4K. Thanks for joining in. I hope you're going to enjoy this. This will be the first time I've ever actually live streamed myself writing some code. Usually I have the code ready and I've already written it, and I'll talk through how the new code works. but this time I'm actually starting from scratch. I just have the GitHub issue that I raised, and I'm going to be working from that. So everything is going to be live. So that'll be fun. So, but welcome and thank you for joining us. So yeah, you can see, oh look, you can see if you click through here, I'll put these in the show notes. I'll put them in the chat so that then I have them later for the show notes. And also so that if you're watching live, you can see the links that I'm going to. So that is the current page I'm looking at, the .NET Core Middleware OWASP Headers Part 1, which is part 1 of a 4-part series of blog posts where I talked about how I built this app. And yeah, so that's all in there. But like I say, so if we go back one, so for the purposes of Tony Bernardo 4K, because I don't know whether they were here when we started, I'm going to take this. This is an issue that so I'll put that in the, have I put that in the show notes yet? I did for the previous stream, but I'm going to put it in for this one as well. So that's the GitHub issue that I logged with my open source project, and that's the one I'm going to attempt to work on. I'm not going to get it finished today. I know that for a fact. I know that straight away because I want to use a fluent interface and I want to use the builder pattern. And I feel like I'm going to have to research some things to do with the builder pattern, because although I've used the builder pattern that other people have created, it's been a while since I did anything with the builder pattern. So it's going to take me a bit of a long time to, but I'm going to have to research some stuff. But for those who are interested, it's really small text, and I won't read it, but there's a link to the Wikipedia description of the builder pattern. So let's just build this, let's bring this up a little bit. So yeah, so there is the Wikipedia page. Other sources would be the Gang of Four design patterns book. That's definitely worth a read. That's more theoretical than, so that's going to be harder for a lot of people to take in. I've heard that the Head First Design Patterns book is a lot easier for people to take in than the Gang of Four, but it's whatever works for you. If a YouTube video works for you, that's fine. Just have a look for builder pattern stuff and see what comes up. So yes, I'm going to use the builder pattern, and for those who haven't seen them before, I'm going to use a fluent interface, which is something that looks a little like this. There's another link in, again, there's a link in the GitHub issue for that and what that looks like. So that's the fluent interface. So it's a bit like Link. Link uses a fluent-like interface. Yes, and then I've gone through a little bit about what I want to do and where I should start my research. I've put that in here as well, so you can read through that if you want. So the short version is I want to do something very similar to how the BuildWebHost class works. So in I always do this in ASP.NET Core 2. If I move the window across, when you go into your program. So yeah, you're very welcome, Tony Bernardo 4K, for the link on the builder pattern. It's definitely worth knowing some of these patterns because they come up all the time in development. They happen all the time. So yeah, you're very welcome. I'll probably end up reading through that Wikipedia page a few times myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a pattern similar to the BuildWebHost. I keep looking across at this screen. So I have you guys on a camera over here. I'm sorry about that. My chair keeps rubbing up against my desk. Let me shuffle a bit. There we go. So I have you guys on a camera over here with the webcam that's built into my laptop. And I have an external monitor over there where my code is, over there. So if I'm talking away and looking over here, that's why I'm looking over here. Like the screen that you can see with JetBrains Rider and the code on at the moment behind this window, behind me, is happening on a screen over here. So just so you know. Okay, so over here we have what I've done is I've separated out in an ASP.NET Core 2 application. Usually what you'll have is instead of having these two lines where we set up a build host, web host, and then we run it, what you'll usually have is you'll have something that looks a little like this. So you'll have BuildWebHost args, whoops, too many brackets there, sorry, too many brackets, run. If you create a brand new .NET Core app with ASP.NET Core from the command line or from Visual Studio, your main method will just have one line in it, and that is this line here. So there's a bunch of reasons why I've separated them out into two lines. One of them is if I wanted to do other things to the web host before I run it, I could do this here. So I can go webhost dot, whoops, dot, and then I can look through and I can go, oh, I don't know. For some reason I want to dispose of it before I run it. But I can do other things to it. So I can inject more services, I can call extension methods on it, that kind of thing. But for now, I don't want to do that. I'm going to be drinking a lot of this water, by the way. I've got a really scratchy, itchy throat today, so I apologize for that in advance. So, we have the BuildWebHost. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use something similar to that for the Secure Headers Middleware class. So the Secure Headers Middleware class is the class that the OwaspHeaders.Core project uses. So let's have a quick look at the BuildWebHost. So we call this BuildWebHost method, which calls webhost.createDefaultWebBuilder. So let's have a look at this. So if I go declaration on that, so this is the declaration of the createDefaultBuilder method. It's an extension method. Again, a lot like link. If you look into how link works, that's all extension methods, and that's how it's able to use things like oh, mouse pointer's over there. How it's able to use things like fluent APIs. That's how that all works. So let's have a look. So what we do is we return a new web host builder, and then we call. So I'm going to edit this so that we can see what's going on, so we can read it a little easier. Let's tab that in a little bit. There we go. And then if I do the same here, that's a call to one of these. So let's take all of this. I just like to tidy things up a little bit. So this is Ryder trying to disassemble some of the code. So we use Kestrel, use the content root, do all of that kind of stuff. That's pretty simple, isn't it? So this is in webhost.cs, which is a static class. Like I said, it's a static class for creating an instance of the web hoster. So if we have a look at how, where are we? I'm scrolling a little fast here. So if we have a look at how create default builder works, we return a new web host builder and then we add stuff to it, right? Is that how we want to do it? I suppose it is. Yeah, okay. So the way this works is it returns a new instance of web host builder. So if I go to the declaration on that, so the web host builder, it is a class. It's a standard class, which is what iWebHostBuilder extends, and it does some things, sets some configs, and then away we go. So if I close this, I want to go back here. So then this is of type iWebHost. So let's see if we can find iWebHost, just so we can get an idea of how this all works. So iWebHost is an interface which implements iDisposable, and it has a start, stop, server, service. Okay, right. So we won't need anything like that. So that's not a problem. Where does webhost exist? Webhost. I believe this web host is the static class. Yep. Okay. So what we need to do over here is in our secure headers middleware, we're expecting to be passed a configuration. So I need to create an extension method which will produce that configuration. So why don't we start with that? So if I go add a class, what did I say I wanted to call it over here? Secure Headers Middleware Builder. Can you see that? Okay. Secure Headers Middleware Builder. This is going to create me a standard class. Yes, I want to add it to source control. we're going to go static class. Right, so what we were saying is that in here we're expecting an instance of one of these. So why don't we, first off, where's my secure, let's close that. Let's close that. There we go. So why don't we need to create a class called build. So public static, it's going to return a secure headers middleware configuration, and we're going to call it build. First thing we're going to do, before we do anything, return new secure headers middleware configuration. Okay. So the idea here is instead of, so when we create an instance of the secure headers middleware, this is going to get a bit jump abouty, I think. We're going to end up jumping about a little bit. So in here, in the configure part of our startup.cs, we're telling the system to use the secure headers middleware via, this is an extension method as well. It's going to be extension methods all the way down, I'm afraid, but let's have a look. So in here, we say builder.use middleware, secure headers middleware, that's my middleware, and we're passing in the config. Yeah. So as you can see here, passing in the config. There's some comments there, but we'll read them later. So what we're doing is we're passing that value in there. So why don't we go for secure headers middleware equals, what did I call it? Secure headers middleware builder dot build. So that way we can go like this and copy that, paste that in there, and we're going to get a default set of values out. So if I comment this out, that was Command K, Command C to comment that out. The uncomment command shortcut from Visual Studio doesn't work, but the comment command does. So there you go. There is a keyboard shortcut to uncomment, but I don't know what it is. I just uncomment manually. So instead of in here, when we're configuring the services, we were saying go and get me the value from go and get me a secure header middleware configuration and put that in the configuration, put that in our services, but get that from the configuration section we're calling secure headers middleware configuration. We're now just saying create it here and dump it in. So we no longer need this value to be dependency injected in, which is what this line did. These two lines here, dependency injected that value in. So let's get rid of that. Instantly our configuration method, our configure method is a lot more simple. We can now actually get rid of this as well. So that previous, that commented line in startup.cs, this one relies on a value, an object of some kind being added to the configuration object from within the startup.cs, from within program.cs, and that configuration here, secure headers middleware configuration, happens to live inside of this JSON file here, secure header settings.json. So you can see there, secure headers middleware configuration, and if I go back to my startup.cs, secure headers middleware configuration. So what this does, what this line here does, what I've highlighted there between there, is in the configuration object, so if I scroll up a bit, in this configuration object, we call an extension method called getSection. We pass in the name of a section to get. So this section won't exist in the, so the configuration is hydrated by looking at whatever comes from the create default builder. So if we go back into create default builder again, here we go. Oh, it's kept my spacing. Brilliant. So the configuration is added in these two lines. Yeah. So we're saying add this JSON file, app settings.json, add that JSON file, app settings.whatever our environment is .json. Those are what are going to live in our configuration. But what we've had to do is we've had to add our own JSON file here, configure app configuration with the builder context and the config, add this JSON file, secure header settings.json, which is this file here, which contains our JSON. We could have manually added that object into this file. So we could have done that one. We could have done this. We could have done that. But the problem with that, of course, is that the app settings.json file gets massive. And it's not separation of concerns and all sorts of things like that. You have one massive file which contains all of these things, and the secure headers middleware configuration isn't really part of the app. It is because it's part of a middleware that's being loaded into the app, but it's not actually part of the app. So that's why I never included that there. Plus that looked pretty ugly, if I'm honest. It's massive and it's ugly. So added it to a separate JSON file, and then in the program.cs, after we'd created the default one, adding in app settings and app settings.development and app settings.production, I then added this line here that says also include this JSON file. Because we now have the extension method which builds the default one, we don't need it. So let's get rid of that. So again, our application, our program.cs looks simpler again. So that's lovely. So we can actually, now that I've described what that is, let's get rid of that. Doesn't that look much more simpler? Doesn't that look simpler? Right. So what we need to do is we need to make this thing not return the default values. So what we need to do is we need to go into here. So if I go, now let's see. How should we do this? I reckon we should have let's have a look at the startup, the program.cs again. See how this works. So this is WebHost returns one of those. So let's have a look at WebHost. Does this have a private static? That's a start method, that's a start method, that's a start method. These are all start methods. So create default builder. So the create default builder returns a new thing. Okay, so that returns a new one. We don't want to return a new one. What we want to do is create a new one and then build it up. So why don't we in startup.c, where's my builder? There we go. So why don't we over here have private static secure headers middleware configuration goes to new secure headers middleware configuration. That's not good at all, if I'm honest, but it'll do for now. We'll call it config. So that's not brilliant, but it'll do. That's going to complain that it's, yeah, okay, that's, let ReSharper rename that. So what that was, I've named it with an underscore and a lowercase c, and it's saying that it recommends that we call it config with an uppercase c. So let's let ReSharper do that for us, because that will look nice. Fantastic. Right, so now that's going to go off the line, you see, that's the problem, but that's not a problem. So let's take the example from my thing here. So let's do HSTS first, because HSTS is pretty easy. So HSTS, if we look at the config file, let's have a look. So HSTS, we have a maximum age and whether we include subdomains or not. That's an int and a bool. That seems pretty cool. So why don't we over here, if we create public static use HSTS, and we need to take in int max age, and we'll give that a default value. We'll give that the default value from my JSON file for now. So I'm about to do something. This is C#4, I believe. And we're going to go bool include subdomains. True. There needs to be a colon, I believe. Nope. Well, they're not done. Oops. Static. Oh, of course. Oh. Thinks it's a constructor. Oh, yes, of course. We're going to call that void. Whoops. Call that void. There we go. So this is now a method It's an extension method, and it uses a C# feature, which I believe is C# 4, called default values. So normally, in a normal C# method, and I realize I'm probably teaching people things they already know here, but let's just in case somebody doesn't know. So that's how you would declare this method. You have two values. What if the user doesn't want to supply them? Well, you give them a default value. And that, what I'll do is I'll undo because that's easier. So I couldn't remember what that value was. Excuse me. So this means that it's a syntactic sugar C# compiler thing. If the caller of this method use HSTS doesn't supply a value for max age and or include subdomains, then these two default values of 6307220 and true will be passed in instead. So what I need to do is I need to get config.use HSTS equals true and config.HSTS configuration equals new HSTS configuration and pass in max age and include subdomains. What doesn't it look about that? Let's have like a 0 parameters but invoked with 2 arguments. So let's have a look. Go to declaration. Yes, okay. So it doesn't want those values. Interesting. So let's create a constructor which takes it. So that's our default constructor. Let's have a look. Default constructor will use hard-coded default values if not called manually. Public HSTS configuration int max value will include subdomains, and then max value max age, that should be max age, whoops, max age, whoops, equals whatever we've passed in, and include subdomains is whatever we've passed in. I could probably make this a private constructor now, and that way we can't call this without a parameter list. Yes, sorry, yes. Tony Bernardo 4K, yes, that is max age is the maximum age in milliseconds. So you'll see here, this value here, which I'm not sure off the top of my head. So let's Google it in seconds. Let's do milliseconds in seconds. Let's find how long that is. 315, so that's going to be, I feel like that's a week. Oh, okay. So 8 hours is, so there are 2 default values in this project for HSTS. There's the value that is included here for no real reason. I could take that out, I suppose. And if we look in our header settings JSON, we were using a completely different value. I feel like that's going to be a month. Let's find out. Whoops. Let's paste that in there, see what Google says. Google says, oh, it's 17.52 hours. So, yeah, okay. Or maybe it's in seconds, I'm not sure. But there you go. Right, so that then calls the HSTS configuration. Oh, I pushed the wrong button again. So because I'm on a Mac, I've got, I have to use the function key to get to my function keys rather than just pressing the key on the keyboard. So when I hit F12, what happens is on my Mac laptop screen, I get sent to, I'm not sure what that's called, mission control, I think it is. Yeah, mission control. But not on the monitor. It did then when I used the mouse to do the grow and shrink motion, but not when I used it any other way. Okay, so, right. So what we need to do is if I go to startup, use HSTS, that returns, so because this returns void, we can't do build on void. So what does build want to work on? Let's have a look. Public static, one of those, it returns one of those. So why doesn't that want to work on this? Okay, so maybe I need to return. That would be weird that I have to return the config. What about if I go this secure headers middleware configuration config, and then we can get rid of this line here. We don't need to create one. We do config.use that. We do config.use that. That's still going to return a new one, but we'll sort that out in a moment. I'll do this so I can see what my arguments are, what my parameters are, sorry. This feels silly to do this, but we'll go this secure header middleware configuration config, and we'll just return the config. So we'll return the config. So what I've done there is I have changed. So when I go back to my startup.cs, what isn't it like here? There's 3 parameters, but is invoked with 0, of course. Oh boy. Right, nope, let's go back. See, this is why I like to do streaming of live code stuff, because let's just go back. So what I tried to do is I tried to make these extension methods, and that's not going to work. Okay, so we can call that. That's brilliant. Let's take that out of there because I keep getting confused and clicking the wrong thing. So let's call that. There's 3 parameters, but it's invoked with 0. Does it have 3? Yes, it has 3. It's going to have 2 in a moment. So we're now supplying those default arguments. What's this? This is complaining because it's returning void and you can't return void. So let's just do that and comment this out. So can I do build there? No, I can't. .is because this returns void, of course. So what we need to do is we will need to, yes, we need that. So the code can return back, but let's have a look. So we have our private variable and we want to use the builder to set that up. So we want to have some method that we need to call first. So I'll call private static secure headers middleware configuration. Whoops. Start builder. I'll rename it in a moment. I'm going to return the config, and that way I can go this secure headers middleware configuration config. Whoops. Config. No, that's always going to have a value. Yeah, that's right. So then if I do config lowercase, config lowercase, that's going to return a secure headers middleware configuration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this parameters list, put it on the next line. My keyboard does that sometimes for some reason. I'm only putting this parameters list on the next line so you can read what it says because I've got the font at such a high level. So I need to rename this. So let's put it to do here. To do rename this. So the point with this method is this is the start building my thing. So this creates a like a base level of configuration. So if I go, so I should be able to go var secure headers middleware config and go secure headers middleware config builder dot. Oh, I made it a private method, didn't I? Yes, public. And then I go start builder use HTS build. Doesn't like that, but we can get that far. So that returns us the secure headers middleware configuration. So if I go builder, start my builder up, use HTS configuration, use HSTS configuration. Now I need to, because it doesn't have a return statement, so return config. This isn't going to return a new one. This needs to take in so this method needs to take in this secure headers middleware configuration config. And this is a really silly method. It literally just goes return config, which it seems silly. Oh, we're returning a new one. Return the config. I'll come up with a slightly better way of doing this, so I'll put a little comment here. Do make this, this needs to make sense. So what we've got is we've got this config up here, which goes to a new one. So whenever the class is, when the class sits on the heap, it creates a new middleware configuration. We then tell the builder to start working, which returns the new one. We then tell it we want to use HSTS. It sets up some values. I'm going to set a completely different 1270001 because then we'll see that none of the default values will be used. That the other two default values are not used. This then sets some values. Why don't we do config equals config. Because it doesn't have a setter, it only has a private getter. Okay, that's fine. It seems silly to have that. Whoops. Oh dear. I've moved my window across. Bear with me a second, sorry. So the get method, I want to go to new secure headers middleware configuration, and the set method, I want to just have a set method. So let me just do that so you can see what we've done there. And I'll put this on separate lines. There we go. So we have a set method and a get method. Oh dear, I've done it again. And then we're going to go config equals config. That will complain. Maybe I can get ReSharper to make one for me. Not implemented. Oh, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We'll just do it. We'll leave it with a get for now. That will do. And then it will say you can turn this into an implicit. There we go. And then we'll do that. That will do for now. Yeah, this isn't going to be brilliant code the first time I go through it. It never is, but that's fine. So, if I go back to my startup now, I can then do build. So then from a consumer point of view, I'm saying use the builder to build one of these. What about if this is not a static class? That needs the static class, doesn't it? No, that has to be a static class. Okay, that's fine. There we go. So we'll leave that as a static class for now. We'll make, we'll make this a lot better later. But we have the basics going. We now have secure headers middleware config, so let's get rid of that. There we go. So this is now ready for testing. So the test is going to fail. We've already got build errors over here. We've got runtime errors even. So what's wrong with this? This is going to complain because there's no, look, see? So I need to make this non-private. Do you remember I changed that? So we need to make this a non-private. Actually, yes. What we want is HSTS configuration. We do want that to be private. That's fine. So what we want is yes. So when we create a new one, we're going to set all those to false, and we don't want to implement these. That's fine. So the way that this works is the secure header middleware configuration has a bunch of booleans that tell us whether we need to use those headers or not. So use HSTS. I've probably called it something wrong in the extension method, but here we're saying if use. Yeah, so we're saying that we don't want, by default, we do not want to use HSTS. And when we go to, is it this one? Yes. So when we go, if use HSTS is on, then we attempt to add the header and we go into the configuration and build the header value. So build header value is a method which is on every single one of these, we don't want that now, do we? Let's get rid of the default constructor. We don't want that. That's fine. Yes. Okay. So if we want to use the HSTS configuration, we have to call this overloaded constructor. Or let's just make this protected HSTS configuration with nothing in it. There we go. Default protected constructor. We can no longer create instances of this class without using the public constructor. So the reason I've done that is so that we can't accidentally call this constructor with no values. So if we have a HSTS configuration class that has been constructed, we know it has values. So we can close that. So yes, we now no longer can do that because there's no public constructor which has no arguments. So let's undo this. We're getting there. This is cool. This is cool. So we no longer need these pieces of code because these were created. These are going to be calling constructors which are then protected. So let's just get rid of all of that. We don't need any of that rubbish. Yes, so we can close that one too. So what we want to do is we want to, in the builder, we want to make a method which allows us to use the next thing down in our list. So we've done that one. Let's do this one, HPKP configuration. Right. This is the one that is going to be deprecated by Google Chrome and Mozilla Firefox, and I can show you that by going up to, so this is my repo. If I go back to the other issues, HPKP is being deprecated in Chrome and Firefox for security reasons. So, and I can send this through, let me send this in the comments in the chat area. So that is related to HPKP being oh, hello Snowpickle, thank you for joining us. I'm in the middle of taking a middleware that I built last year for .NET Core and ASP.NET Core, converting it from using a JSON configuration file and making it use a Fluent-like API with the builder pattern. It's not brilliant at the moment. I'm going to get it working and then I'm going to make it look better. I don't think I'll get it all done in this streaming session, but we'll see how we fare. So I was just talking about how HPKP, which is a a header that you can include in the responses you send back from the server in a web app. That is being deprecated in Chrome and Firefox soon, and this is one of the it's one of the header it's one of the HTTP headers that I had included in the current version of the middleware. Sorry, it's been a while since I've done a live stream, so it takes me a moment to figure out the word I want to say, so I apologize for that. So it's being deprecated. So the way I see it is there's no point in re-implementing it in the new version of the software. So for a really quick, hopefully I can do this really quickly for Snowpickle7 who's just joined in the chat. So what this system did do before was it read this JSON file here, and hydrated a bunch of settings within its own little POCO, its own little plain C# object based on the values in here. So if we chose to use HPKP, it would set up a bunch of stuff for HPKP. Now, because HPKP is being deprecated in Chromium and Firefox moving forward, and I'm replacing a bunch of code to do this, I don't see the point in setting this up. So I'm not going to re-implement HPKP, which means that I can do two things. Where are we? It means that I can tick this issue off, in that the secure headers middleware will no longer support HPKP, and I can also, can I go back with this mouse? No, okay. But it also means that I can work on this task, which is the task I'm working on at the moment. There's a link to it in the chat if you can see it. I don't know whether you can go further back in the history, where there's no point in me building in functionality I'm then going to remove in the next commit. So I'm just not going to add it. That's the short version. So I'm not going to add that. But what I'm also going to do, as well as not adding it, I'm actually going to remove it. So let's have a look at the secure header middleware config. So let's go to that declaration, and you'll see there's a use HPKP. Let's get rid of that, because that no longer is required. We'll get rid of where we are setting it. So this is in the class. We need to get rid of it from the interface as well. So we'll get rid of that because we don't need it. Other things are going to now start to fail. Like I now have a failed test. So if you scroll through the tests, I now have a failed test. So there is no public key pins. HPKP is public key pins, which means when it tries to use this, when it tries to call this Boolean, it then falls over. So let's make sure that we've removed everything else first. So HPKP configuration. So let's get rid of, oh bother, what happened there? Let's get rid of that. HPKP configuration, let's move that. So we don't need that method anymore. Now we're going to have a few more issues, but that's fine. So this now no longer exists because we're no longer going to have this in the class, so there's no point in having the test. So let's get rid of the test. There we go. That's the test gotten rid of. Tests are now passing again. Let's have a look in here. So in the secure header middleware, so this is where the middleware actually is used. I did send a link earlier on. Let me just go back one and see if I can find the link to where I wrote about middleware. So if I copy that, open in a new window, here we go. So the way that .NET Core, the request pipeline for .NET Core works is it sets up, it is literally a pipeline. So let me scroll down to my image. It is the best set of images, I'm sure you'll agree. Totally not done with MS Paint. In fact, they weren't done with MS Paint, they were done with Google Draw. So what we have is we have ASP.NET Core sets up a pipeline, and as we add things, so if I just scroll back over here, if I go back to my startup.cs, anything that's added in here becomes what is the overview of this project? Okay, so Snowpickle7 has just asked, what's the overview of the project and what's the middleware used for? So let me go through that first and then we'll come back to the pipeline. So OwaspHeaders.Core. It's a really good question, Snowpickle. I'll answer that now for you. So OwaspHeaders.Core is, where is my link? I'm sure I've got a link in here somewhere. OWASP settings, no, that's not it. There it is. So the idea behind this, in a new tab. Yes. So the idea behind this middleware, which you can find on NuGet if you're using an ASP.NET Core, an ASP.NET Core application. The idea is that it implements the recommendations from the OWASP Secure Headers project. So if I take this link and I paste this into the chat, there we go. So it's part of the OWASP incubator. So OWASP is the Open Web Application Standard project, and they are a fantastic bunch of people. If you ever want to learn about application security, definitely check out owasp.org. They have a podcast as well, and I'm a bit of a podcast addict, if I'm honest. Let me show you, actually. Let me come over here. Can I do it over here? Probably not. I'm probably going to end up showing you. Oh, there we go. So if I show you my... Now I do use Pocket Casts, so I'm not doing this as an attempt to sell Pocket Casts, because you can use whatever you want for podcasts if you're into podcasts. But let me just show you. Let me bring this over. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. I think at the last count there were 76 active subscriptions that I have in here, and I listen to pretty much every episode of each one. But what's great about OWASP is they have the OWASP Security Podcast, and it's an amazing podcast, and it's put out by the folks behind the OWASP project, and they interview certain people related to security. So that's definitely worth a listen if you're into podcasts. I am, but that's just me. But anyway, so the OWASP Secure Headers project is an attempt at pointing out recommendations for HTTP headers that all web applications should have in them. So you put a request into a website, it sends back a response, and in that response it should have these headers. I've implemented pretty much everything in this list in OWASP Headers Core. There's technical resources, there's best examples, there's best practices, there's compatibility matrices. It's really, really worth your time if you're a web developer looking through this page and having a look at why certain things, so like the HSTS and what that does and how that works. Oh, it was in seconds. So Tony Banana 4K, it was in seconds, not milliseconds. So I apologize about that. I got that wrong. But yes, it's definitely worth having a look through this page if you're into web development, because these are things that we need to know. In fact, the parts of the UK government had to be taken down last weekend. Their websites had to be taken down last weekend because they weren't using CSP, the Content Security Policy, or other, I think it's SRI. I forget what that means, but it's the integrity, the hash file of each injected JavaScript file. They weren't using that, and a third-party library that they were using on all of their pages included code to bootstrap a Bitcoin miner. If they'd have used Content Security Policy, then that would have been mitigated. But for a 2 or 3 hour period over the weekend, last weekend, so that is... Let's have a look what the date is today. So the date is Saturday the 17th of February. So the previous weekend, the 10th of February, it would have been the Sunday the 11th of February that it happened, I believe. When that happened, they, let's just check that. Yeah, Sunday the 11th, yep. When that happened, they had to take the websites down to put some stuff in place, and they bring the websites back up. Because what was happening was people were going to the websites, so the UK government websites, the ICO, in fact, it was one of their websites, which is just silly. So the ICO is the Information Commissioner's Office. So their site had to be brought down to stop this hack from happening. So what was happening was a Bitcoin miner was injected into the page for everyone who had visited the page. Now, it wouldn't have stopped it 100%, but the content security policy would have helped. But yes, so it's definitely worth looking at these things. So even people who are very, very, very good at this get this wrong sometimes, is what I'm getting at. I'm not perfect. You may not be perfect. The people in these instances weren't perfect. So yes, so it's definitely worth having a look through the OWASP Secure Headers project. It's also worth having a look on the OWASP website in case any of your code has to pass a penetration test, because not everyone, but a lot of the companies that offer penetration testing use OWASP guidelines as a base for what to look for. So if you have those covered, then you're better than a large percentage of people who go for penetration tests. Now that's covered. The point of this middleware is it sets up those secure headers, and so middleware. Let me try that again. Thank you very much, Snowpickle. So Snowpickle has said that it was a very interesting example that I gave during that description, and I think it is as well. Troy Hunt, who is a bit of an information security impresario, he has a bit about it in his this week's podcast. So dropping names there. Anyway, so so ASP.NET Core sets up pipelines for your request to go through. I like to visualize them horizontally, but some people like to visualize them vertically. If this doesn't work, just turn your head slightly to one side. That's my watch telling me that I need to stand up and walk around, but that's fine. So what we're showing in this diagram is a request coming in. We have logging middleware, user authentication middleware, and then database access middleware. It's not a brilliant example, but it will do. And the idea is that each step through these pipeline elements, these middleware elements, at each step along the path, the middleware that is being accessed, that is accessing the request that's come in, can generate a response and send it out, which will short circuit whatever else is in the pipeline. So an example of this, I don't think I have this example, but I should have done, is imagine instead of that saying database, imagine that says MVC. That makes more sense. That's the more useful example. So let's say we have a website and the user has to log in before they can see anything behind the login screen. If they're not authorized, so they attempt to access the page, the logging middleware comes in and goes, brilliant, I'll spit out some logs. The user auth middleware comes in and goes, they're not authorized. I'm not going to pass the request on to the next stage. I'm going to generate the response and send it out and tell the user they need to authorize or authenticate. So that's what happens here. I've got these errors kind of the wrong way around, but that's fine. So the request comes in, goes into the logging middleware, goes into the user auth middleware. The user auth middleware detects that the user is not authenticated, they're not logged in. It then generates a response and works in the exact same direction that so then the user auth generates a response and sends that straight out. It short circuits the rest of, so imagine that says MVC, you're never going to see anything from MVC. And the whole point of that is that an example of this would be if you have an app and you use the developer exception middleware. So if an exception happens and you're in development, you'll get a nice development exception page saying this fell over, this is why, go check your code, here's the stack trace. If you're in production, you won't get that because you don't include the development exception middleware. So yeah, have a look through this link. I've put it in the chat log somewhere. So have a look back through there. And this it's my description of how the middleware pipeline works. So let's have a quick look back at here. So where were we? Yes. So we've got HSTS. We've decided we're not going to do HPKP. So let's remove the configuration. So let's edit, delete. They've moved all of these around. So for those who haven't used Rider before, this is Rider, and it's really quite good. I think it's quite good anyway. I'm going to take that out of there. So I'm removing the HPKP configuration because we don't need it, because we're not going to implement it, because we said earlier on, if I scroll back over here, we said earlier on that Google and Mozilla are going to deprecate the use of HPKB. So there's no point in me implementing it in this new version. So let's get rid of that, because I already have a, that's not even vaguely lined up. Let's realign these. There we go. So because it's not going to be used going forward, there's no point in re-implementing it, especially since I have an issue that I logged myself where I've said that I'm going to get rid of it. So there's no point in re-implementing it to then get rid of it again. So let's leave this open, because this has some information about the stuff. So we've implemented HSTS. Let's have a look at X-frame options. So if I use the original thing here, so let's get rid of this. Don't need it. X-frame options. So X-frame options, configuration, value is deny. So that's our default value we were loading in our example, but let's go have a look at X-frame options in, oh, I've closed it now, in the secure headers. There we go. So in the secure headers project, they have a bunch of example values for these headers. So if I go AX, did I say it was X-frame? Let's have a look. What are we looking at? Yeah, X-frame options. So the X-frame options, let's have a look. So there's deny, same origin, or allow from, and then a given domain. Excuse me. So what we need to do, if I go up here and have a look at best practices, did it load that tab? It has loaded that tab. Okay, X-frame options. Let's have a look. So they're saying that your best practice for X-frame options is to just deny it. Okay, so let's go back here and have a look at X-frame options, see what it says. Oh, that's my best practices tab again, sorry. X-frame options, right. X-frame options response header improves the protection of web applications against clickjacking. It declares a policy communicated from a host to a client browser on whether the browser must not display the transmitted content in frames or other pages. So in some instances, it will be worth having X-frame stuff, but for most of the time, you'll want to not use X-frame. So let's deny that by default, but we need to allow same origin or allow from a domain. So I could maybe have an enum. Oh, right, sorry, yeah. So Snowpickle7 says, what other projects could be using your middleware to make web requests other than OWASP? What other projects then be using your middleware to make web requests? I'm not sure what the question is asking. Are you asking which? Oh, right, okay. So whether there are other middleware that use OWASP examples, right? So are there any others? So let's have a look. I honestly didn't do this when I created this, so I'm assuming that the question is, what other middlewares are there which follow OWASP stuff? All I did was I searched for on NuGet for OWASP, and there's a few. Oh, there's even, oh, this is brilliant. So this is generated by a friend of mine called Paul Seal. He runs codeshare.co.uk, and he's created a password generator that uses the password recommendations from OWASP. So there's lots and lots and lots of stuff. Excuse me. There's all sorts of stuff on NuGet for ASP.NET Core apps that use OWASP stuff. So it's definitely worth taking a look. That's nice. My OwaspHeaders.Core appears second in that list. Cool. I'll need to come up with a flashy logo. Ooh. So there you go. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so we need to do deny, allow, from a domain, and same origin. So how about we use these three values that I've highlighted here as an enum, and then we have a domain. If we supply the third option in the enum, why would someone use my project? Oh, right. Okay. So, right. Okay. So the question is, why would someone use my middleware rather than creating their own? I guess ease of configuration. That would be a reason why someone would do it. Let's have a look. I've included it in one or two of my own projects just because then I don't have to mess around with setting up the server myself. You can set these things up, but you have to usually set them up on your reverse proxy server. So like in IIS or Apache or Nginx, you have to include some lines to do it for you. But the idea with this is it makes it easier because then the application does that for you. The application adds these headers in before it even gets to the reverse proxy on the way out. So it's that extra level of ease of configuration, I guess. I guess that's why. I mean, you might have to ask, if I go back to NuGet, if you really want to know why someone would use this, you might have to ask the 2,000 plus people who have downloaded it. But yeah, that's why I created it, because I had a bunch of ASP.NET Core applications that didn't have these headers on by default. In fact, they're not on by default. So I've created this this middleware to make the setup of those headers easier, if that makes sense. So you just include this middleware, call it in a specific way, and then it will do all of that for you. That's why, I guess. I hope that answers your question a little better. So let's, yes. So if I do that, so we've got the option of deny. So let's see how I originally set this up. So, right. So it's an enum. Allow. Oh, brilliant. Okay. So it's already set up for me. So I just need to map the same thing. So in my builder, that is public static, secure header middleware configuration, use X-frame options. We want to take in the first thing we want to take in is this secure header middleware configuration config. And then we want to take in not one of those. Where was it? There it is. We're taking an X-frame options value. Here. Need to include that, I guess. We want to include it directly. We don't want to include. That's weird. It wants me to. Where does this live? Call models. Okay. So let's do that. Oh. Well then why? Okay, that's fine. Yep. Okay. And then string domain equals null. So let's put these on separate lines so we can see what's going on. There we go. So then all we need to do, config dot X-frame configuration equals new X-frame configuration, and then pass these values in. X-frame option should be option, not options, and domain, I guess. What isn't it like? 0 parameters, but it's same thing here. So I need to create a, where are we? Public. Okay, so let's make that protected. Wipe that out. Oh, close that. Oh well. Okay. Create a protected constructor. So we go public X-frame option configuration. And we're going to take in X-frame options, X-frame option, and a string allow from domain. So then if I go X-frame option, option value, X-frame option, whoops, put that mouse over there for a second, and then allow from domain equals allow from domain. Save that. And then I can close this, and if I go back to here, that now works. Brilliant. And then we need to return the config. Return config. I don't like that I'm having to call build, but I suppose it's fine. Use HSTS. So what I want to do before I continue, actually, I'm going to put some comments in here. So includes the HTTP. What did we call it? What was HSTS? It's called strict transport security. Strict transport security. Header in all responses generated. Whoops. By the application which consumes this middleware. I need a remarks in here. If no value for param, that's what I want there. Param name. Include max age or param name include subdomains are provided. If no values for those are provided, then default ones will be used. Please method signature for the default value. We want values. There we go. Do we want to talk about the returns? No, because it's a static method. So max age, the maximum age, is it in seconds? Yeah. The time in seconds that the browser should remember that the site should only be accessed. Okay. Why don't I just copy and paste that for now? Let's put that on its own line. I like to do this. I don't like my XML comments to be too long. I should be able to see it all on the screen without having to scroll across. And then include subdomains. To all of the site subdomains. So if I then go back to where was my startup.cs, and then so the reason I did all of that is so that when I do use HSTS, no, that's kind of annoying. That's probably happened. There we go. So the reason I did all of that typing there Doesn't show me the full comments. That's interesting. That must be, so I think this is either because I've increased the font size of Rider, or maybe Rider just doesn't support XML comments fully. But the idea is that if I do HSTS like that, and then I go into this method, go to declaration, what should be happening is this XML documentation should have displayed when I was typing that in. But what happens if I hover? There we go. Yes. Okay, so you can see a little bit of information here. It says, because the text might be too small, I haven't changed this one. It says brackets method brackets secure headers middleware configuration OwaspHeaders.Core extensions secure headers middleware builder.use HSTS, and then it's the method fingerprint, the method signature, and then it says includes the HTTP strict transport header in all responses. So it's reading off the XML documentation. That's brilliant. So that's brilliant. So let's do the same thing for this. I like to have documentation, you see. So this includes the, so declares a policy. Let's copy that. I'll rewrite these later. I realize I'm taking a lot of text directly from OWASP, but to be fair, they've put it really well. If it is deemed that I should rewrite these, then I will. I'm not going to bother including a parameter description for config because it's the default. Right. So if I go like this. Okay. Rendering this site within a frame. Value applicable values. Deny. Is it deny allow? Deny, so same origin. Deny. Deny, allow, and what did I call it? Allow from. Okay. Deny, same origin, allow from. Allow from. If allow from is, oops, supplied, this optional parameter describes the source what did we say? If the frame is yes. I feel like that's a really terrible comment, but it will do for now, I guess. Save that. I'll leave that there for a second, and then we'll come back over here. So then I'm going to go to use Xframe options. That's now going to complain because there isn't a default, but that's fine. So I'm going to go equals deny. So I want to deny by default because let's have a look at what they recommend actually. Again, best practices, Xframe, I'm presuming, yep, they say deny everything. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, so rather than having to go into Apache and set these things, or Nginx and set this, or ISS and set certain things, I can just literally set them inside the app, and they're dealt with for us. So that's fine. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna end up with this whole this default being put into an extension method. So I'll create one that's maybe where we're in the startup. Yep. So what I'll probably do is probably secure header middleware section. So I'll go public static secure header middleware configuration build default configuration like that. And then what I'll do is I'll actually just move this. Look at that. Put this in here. Return that. Builds a default an instance of the secure header middleware configuration. So I'm going to go ccref secure header middleware configuration with default values. Please hang over. The default values are supplied via the calls to use each of the headers. Please see comments on those methods for the default values that they supply. There we go. And then remarks. I always like to add a remarks. This method sets up all of the secure headers, all of the headers which are recommended by the OWASP, using default values that they recommend in their best practices. Please see the following URL for the current best practices. And then I'm going to say that, copy, back over here, put that in there, and that way everyone who uses this then knows what this is all about. And if I set up these, so if I go back to my HSTS and I go to declaration, I then come back over here and they're saying maximum age is this. Whoop. So that's their recommended value. There we go. These default values will be based on the OWASP and the OWASP best practices values. Yeah, that'll do. And then what I want to do is do something similar to this. Don't need to do a returns statement, I don't think. I really should, but I don't need to. If no value for X frame option is provided, then the default one will be used. This default value will be is based on the OWASP best practices value. what did we call it? X frame. X frame. Is it X frame options? Yeah. There we go. So we'll be based on the best practice values for HSTS. There we go. That way it's obviously clear what's going on. We're including the recommended values. What's going on here? Right, it doesn't like that. So what we'll do is we will say extensions.build default one. Yeah. There we go. Okay. What I'll do as well is I'll make this config, this one nullable. And if you don't supply it, then I'll just call this maybe. I don't know. Right, so we've got through the first two headers. So that's these two. Let's get rid of those. So there's only a few left. Ace. So cross-site scripting. So let's have a look. So the cross-site scripting configuration. Oh dear, this is a big one. Right, okay. So let's see what they say about cross-site scripting. So in the headers, cross-site scripting protection. So either disable the filter, enable it with detected and stop the attack, enable it and block, or enable it and filter to that domain. So they recommend you should enable the filter and block it out. Okay, so let's go back one. Let's see how we are currently implementing it. Okay, so if I go here, nope, that's not what I wanted. That's the actual middleware. I'm getting lost here. Middleware builder. Yep, we need to add a method for this. So let's go public, whoops, static secure header middleware configuration. Use XSS. Secure header middleware configuration config. Let's wire it up first. Right, so let's have a look in so we were setting it to one block and string empty. Let's see what the recommended value is. Best practices for XSS is 1 and block. Okay, that's cool. So they're saying 1 block. So let's go 1 block and empty, presumably. Protection mode 1, mode block. Yeah, 1 block. Okay. So yeah, so let's make that private, which will tell, no, not private, make it protected, which will tell me where my areas are going to be. Let's go public XSS configuration. I'm going to take in an XSS mode, and a string report URI. Equals whatever we're passing in, and string report URI. Oh, report URI is equal to report URI. I'm going to make that nullable because that's the default. We're then going to take this out. We don't need it. We don't want it to set any values. If there are no values set, we want them to be null. We want it to fall over. Okay, so over here, what we want to do is we want to make a secure headers middleware. So we want to say it's going to take in, what were we taking in? We were taking in, whoops, an XSS mode. May as well just copy those, return those. Oh, bother. You watch, it'll paste the blank line now. Yeah. I copied the wrong thing there, folks. So if I copy that, paste that, that's going to say I don't know what it is. Then I'm going to go use that. Fantastic. Tab that across. So then we're going to go config.xss configuration equals new XSS configuration, we're going to go XSS mode and report URI. Excellent. This is looking pretty good. It's probably not going to run very well, but it's looking pretty good. So headers, XSS protection. Yeah, okay. Oops. Enables cross-site scripting protection. Declares a policy, includes HTTPS. Yeah, okay. Enables protection. Is that literally what it says there? Yeah. The cross-site scripting protection filter in the client browser. We don't need that one. Let's get rid of that. And we don't need the returns, but we do need the remarks. So XSS mode. This is the cross-site scripting mode to use. Cross-site scripting filter. Right. XSS filter mode to use. Acceptable values. Whoops. Values are. And then we're going to say, presumably, 0, 1, 0, 1 block report. Okay, so let's copy that. There. Yeah. An optional report, an optional URI to report, whoops, any XSS filter violations to this parameter is optional, and will only be used, whoops, if the value of XSS mode is set to one report. If no value for param name XSS mode is supplied, whoops, then the default one it's based on that, so based on the OWASP best practices for XSS. What should I say here? XSS protection. Yeah, there we go. So then I can do dot use x. Oh, bother. No. XSS. Yes, I need to make that nullable. Use XSS. I feel like it should be protection. Yeah, because yeah, if I leave that as use XSS, that implies to me as a consumer of the method that I'm going to use cross-site scripting. Whereas I want to use cross-site scripting protection equals one block. There we go. Save that. We're getting there. We're starting to fly. I honestly thought it would take a lot longer to get to this point. I don't even know what time it is. It's 15:29. How long have I been streaming for? I mean, I don't mind continuing until I finish, but how long have I been streaming for? Let's have a look. Oh, only an hour and a half. That's not so bad. I'm trying. So taking a little break. A lot of my earlier streams have been a bit choppy, is how people have described them. And I think it's mainly due to the fact that my upload speed is pretty terrible. I get around just under a megabyte a second, which is fine for like audio, but when it's video as well, it gets a bit choppy. So I'll be interested to find out whether some of the changes I've just made today will make sense. But there you go. So, CSP next. Let's do content security policy. Okay, so I don't need this open anymore. So now I can reduce this to, what's this? Oh yes, I've already done that. Yeah, that's fine. I can reduce this to 4 open files, 3 open files. The tests aren't going to fail now. None of the tests are immediately going to fail as I start making changes. So we can leave this. We don't even need this file open anymore, so I can close that. Brilliant. I only need 3 files open from now on. So we're going to look at X content type. What's X content type? Let's have a look. Is that the next one? X content type. No sniff. So okay. Right. Okay. So let's have a look. So this is just going to be one that's true, isn't it? So let's have a look at. Oh yes, that's not what we want. Argument exception. Yes. That was really simple. Okay, so yeah, so the default here is the only option available. So if I go back to here, so the X content type options, the only value available is no sniff. So there was no point in creating a POCO to keep the configuration. So what I'm going to do here is I'm literally just going to set that value to true. So this is setting the header will prevent the browser from interpreting. Let's copy that because that's useful. Oops, wrong way. So let's go here and we'll create a public static secure middleware header configuration. Use, what did we say it was? Content type options. Content type options. What? That's because I wasn't looking. Right. This secure header middleware configuration config. That's all we need. By calling it use something, all of these methods use something assumes that we are setting something to true. I want to use this. So all I need to do here, config.use X content type options equals true. Return config. Sorted. Excuse me. So let's do that. Oops. Paste that in. This will no, let's just setting, oh bother, setting this header will blah 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 blah. Don't need one for that. So in here, don't need a returns, but I do need a remarks. Remarks. There is no value to pass in here. OWASP recommends that if you use is it X content type? Yeah. The other options. Options. This is the default value for this header. This is the default value for this header when using No, hang on. No sniff is the default value for this header when using this middleware. There we go. Brilliant. So then in here I can just go .use content type options, and that's sorted. Brilliant. That means I can get rid of that one, because that's the only one that says true. Right, CSP now. So content security policy. These last few are the difficult ones, because there's lots of different things to include. How have I implemented this one? Content security policy. So each of the configurations, they all implement the same interface, and that is secure header middleware configuration. The secure header middleware configuration just says that it must include a method called, oh no, it's not that one. Am I looking at the wrong thing? I am. So let's go back to this. Policy build header value. Where's build header value? So build header value is there, and that is set in, yes. So each of the configuration classes for the OWASP secure header middleware that I've built all require, they all implement iConfiguration base. And iConfiguration base just says that we have a method called string build header value. Okay, fair enough. So if you look down, what's the problem here? No, that's fine. So if you look down here, then what we do is we create, no, that's our public thingy. So each of the classes has this build header value method that is overridden, that is set by the, yes. Okay. So any values? What's that? I think that's my, yeah, that's my private bool value. Okay. So I don't need to change this. All I need to do is I need to allow the user to pass in any number of lists of strings for these here, and for those two values, and for that string value. Right. So if I make that protected, that's going to cause things to blow up. No, okay. So this is public content security policy configuration. This argument list is going to be massive. Should I make an extension method for this which adds them? Yes. So this is just going to take in bool, whoops, block, all mixed content, and bool, upgrade secure requests, and string report URI. That's all that this method is going to take in, just those three. Because I'm going to build static extension methods which set the values of these lists, because otherwise that's just silly. So why don't we set these as empty strings? Maybe they should be. No, bother up and then muck that up, haven't I? So it goes to new list of string. No? No, it's not. Oh, okay. What's this? Okay, let's see what's the problem here. No. Why don't I go to new list of string? Whoops. List of type string. So that is now a list of type string. So I no longer need to set that. What's this complaint about? Has no setter. Oh, of course it doesn't. So if I create a method here, oh, yep. Is that how you do it? Oh, I can't remember how you do it now. Doesn't know what this is, does it? Nope, just for now. We'll do it like that. Make it better later. Okay, so protected, don't need any of those. I'm gonna have to set those up as empty strings. Block all mixed content equals block all mixed content. Get rid of, why don't I copy that, paste that, paste that there. Oh no. Cut that out because I don't need it there. Paste that in here. Get rid of this protected constructor because I don't need it. And that is going to be block all mixed content. That is going to be upgrade all insecure requests, and this is going to be report your error. Oh hey, okay, Cosmic Bread Box. Well, you gotta go grab some food, so I guess we'll see you when you come back. Bon appetit, I guess. So that's cool. So then what I need to do is I need to create a public static content security policy extensions. Public static class. There we go. And then within here I'm going to say public static. It's going to take an instance of this, so we're going to go set base URI. We're going to go this. Oops, thing. Yes, this. We're going to take a list of strings that are the base URIs. That isn't a static constructor. What have I not done? Public static class, public static type, return. What about, where's my... Oh. Return yes, and then do the same thing for all of the others. So default source. This is going to take a while. Hit fast forward if you want. You're just going to see me do a lot of copy paste here. Default source. Yes, so in here, this is going to call public static. Oh, this is still going to have a massive number of this is going to have a massive number of arguments. The reason it's going to have a massive number of arguments is because content policy configuration, content security policy configuration can have as many of those as it wants. No, why don't I? Right, okay. Public secure headers middleware configuration. Use what is content security policy? Security policy. We're still going to do the same as this. Secure headers middleware configuration config. We're going to return the config, and then we're going to go config.content security policy configuration equals new content security policy configuration. That's going to complain because we haven't passed these things in, and then we're going to pass in the things that it wants. Where are we? Content policy configuration. We're going to pass in those things. Copy those. So the reason I keep making silly mistakes with the keyboard is I'm using a keyboard, a standard mechanical keyboard, and so it has, I've shown it before on some videos. Let me just, so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so on this keyboard here, it's a standard Windows keyboard. There is the Windows, or as it's known in Linux land, the super key, which is this key here. This key here is the same as the command key in Mac OS, which means if you can imagine trying to hit start and C, start and V, it's a little unnatural for Windows users. And my initial background back in the day was Windows, and I use Windows every day at work, so it's interesting. Upgrade and then report URI. So what I'm going to do here, set that up. Okay, so my choice is, where are we? This one, right. So I'm going to have to create, I'm either going to have to have some meta object to contain all of these lists of strings, because this could be a list of strings, or I'm going to have, where are they? Let me see if I can collapse these and make this easier to read. It's just the comments that's collapsed. Or I'm going to have to call each and every single one of these in the constructor and pass in those lists, or in my middleware builder, set up the basic one, and then have a bunch of methods that are extension methods, but basically just wrap calls to these methods. I'll show you what I mean. So let's just do that. So we'll set the use content security policy. Use content security policy. Oh yeah, these need to be default values. So what's the default value for this? What do they reckon? So let's go back up to the top. Best practices, content security policy. They reckon script self, self, object self. Okay. They haven't said content security policy. So they haven't said whether those two should be true or not in their recommended best practices. I would say they should be. So the two that I'm pointing at, script self, object self, yeah. Okay, so the two that I'm pointing at, if I go content security policy, these are block all mixed content. So anything that's served over HTTP on a so if your website is HTTPS like this page is, but let's say that this icon was served over HTTP, what block all does is it blocks that. It says, no, I can't download that because you've told me to download this web page using HTTPS, but you've only given me an HTTP connection to do it, so I'm going to block it. And the other one attempts to upgrade insecure requests to secure requests. So I reckon that one should be true and that one should be true. Yeah. So let's set these default values to equals true, whoops, equals true, equals true, and this one, your report URI will always be different. So I'll set that to no. I can't set it to string empty because that's not a compile time constant. So default values for C# arguments have to be compile time constants. String.empty, string.null. String.empty is not a compile time constant, so you have to use null there. So let's write a little comment. Let's see what they've put. Content security policy requires fine tuning if enabled CSP is significant impact on whether. Whatever. I'll just take that. I'll take that for now. The content of the comments is not a huge issue for now. I mean, it is, but it's not going to be a deal breaker if I don't get the content, if I don't get the comments right. But I want to have them. It's more important to have comments that can be changed than it is to not have comments. I would much rather have comments that are there than comments which are missing, even if they're vaguely right rather than being completely right. So let's do that, and then we want upgrade insecure requests. I know that I'm copying this, and I'm going to put a little note at the top of the file saying that some comments for certain things were taken from the OWASP website. In fact, I'll do that now. So let me do that now, up to the top. Note, right at the top of the file actually. Note. Some comments specifically for, especially those which explain what the different parameters. Yep. Sometimes I have to spell things out weirdly to make sure that I get them right. And yeah. Each header are taken from the OWASP secure headers page. There we go. These can be found. The original comments can be found at. Now I'll go. Busted that now, haven't I? There we go. Save that. Right. So now, so we've got that. We've got content security policy being used. Let me just refresh this page so we get that back. So the idea I'm thinking is public static secure middleware configuration. Whoops. content security policy set base URI. Unreal Wombat, you're very true. I should take a break. I'm just going to get this bit done first. List of string, we're going to import import that first. This, you're definitely right, I should take a break. Import that. List of string, base URI, return config, and then I'm going to go if config dot use content security policy config dot content security policy configuration dot set base URI. Then I'll put a question mark there. So then if it so Unreal Wombat, I will answer your question in a moment. I'm just gonna so your question is what keyboard am I using? I will definitely answer that in a moment. I'm just going to talk through what I've done here. So if I policy, yep. Oh, bother. So the idea here is in here I can go, whoops, like this, and pass a new list string with a capital L. There we go. It's going to give me a compile warning because it doesn't know what list is in this context. But the idea I'm going for is that you call use content security policy, and then you can then set certain base URIs and stuff. I will create a bunch of, I'll create a number of extension methods that fill in the gaps for those. But for now, I'm going to keep this one, put a little to do in to tell me to implement the rest. And then I'll create the ones, if I go back home, I will only create the ones for now that are recommended. So script self and object self. So script and object. I'll just create those two. And that way I can get this sort of, I get a line drawn under the sand for this. Get it committed into my local Git. And then I can add the other, because I don't mind copy pasting and setting up extension methods, but I'm going to be doing it quietly. And you know, I can't see it being very terribly exciting for you to watch me copy paste. But I mean, if you want me to continue once I've done this, I don't mind, but there you go. So Unreal Wombat 117, you have asked, what is the keyboard that I'm using? I'm just going to have a look, see if the value is on the back. I believe it's a 420. I've got a, the keyboard I'm using is a Moto Speed, and I believe it's, I can't remember now. It's definitely Moto Speed. Excuse me, CK something products, let's have a look. So it's one of their keyboards. I can't remember which one it is. I didn't buy it directly from them. CK98? KR107? I've got the box under here. Just bear with me a second. I will tell you what it is. Let's have a look. What's this? Nope, that's not related to this. Yeah, the CK104. So, is it listed? Is it listed? It's not. That's interesting. Maybe it's listed as a gaming keyboard. CK? No. Interesting. Have they got it? Let's go back then. So the one I use is CK104. Whoops. That's the one. They're not terribly expensive. I just need to put these boxes away. Just bear with me a second. They're not terribly expensive. I believe I got mine for around the same prices that are listed on Google there, so around £30 UK. There we go. Yeah, so it's a Moto Speed CK104, and as I was saying then when I was slightly away from the microphone, I paid around the same price. So these are around, they're listing around 30 to 40 UK pounds. It's got Cherry MX Blues, and it has these really cool features, if I can remember how to do it. So it's got like a, let me bring this up. I think I'd showed this off in the previous video actually, but I'll show you again anyway. It has this really cool pulse mode, which is cool for the LEDs. And there's, what else do we have? This sort of fill option. So each key has an RGB LED underneath it. So it's a Cherry MX Blue with an RGB LED. And there's a really cool feature I really like that does that. Oh, did it? Yeah, it's not easy to see. And I've just, oh bother, hang on one moment, I've just broken something. Just bear with me a sec. I'm going to have to take a break, I guess, just to fix this. Just bear with me a second whilst I replace that. So what's going to happen is you're about to see my desktop repeated over and over again. So I apologize for that in advance. That shouldn't have been terribly horrible. What happened was I was pushing a key on the keyboard to show you what happens. I've got this like pulse mode and this like shot mode, which is really cool. So I just need to reorganize all of this. I've now done that. I'm now setting up my view whilst you're, there we go, that's a little better, isn't it? Now let's just make that a little bit smaller. Nope, that'll do. Right, so what this thing does, let me see if I can highlight, let's go into that. Right, so what this does is if I hit a key like this, where's my, there. You see that? It sort of like pulses based on where my finger was, which is really cool. And you can change the color of the LEDs and stuff, which is really cool. But yeah, it's, where are we? There's also this kind of funky like demo mode that just cycles through all of the colors, a rainbow. There we go. So we're back to where we were, I think. Almost. I just need to resize this, so I'm going to drop that down a bit, bring that back up there, put this in the right. Oh, I've moved it across rather than, there we go. Oh, bother. So what this is, let's do this. So let's, I do want to put this back. So, oh well. So if I do, and then I move this down here. What I ended up doing then was I accidentally deleted the scene that I was sharing. So my screen, I deleted it from OBS, which is what I'm using to do this. So I'm just really quickly putting back the elements that were there. at least then you can see what's going on. So if I lock that down and I double click this and I go, right, yeah, of course. I feel like I should have this whole setup automated, but there you go. Let's move that across. Let's move that over to lock that down. There we go. Lock those into place. Cool. Yeah, that'll do. That's upsetting me that they're not lined up now. There we go. Right. Yeah. So I think I'll take a couple of minutes just as a little break, as Unreal Wombat as suggested, and I'll come back and I'll finish off the few things that I need to do in this without filling in every single possible extension method that I need to create to support all of the possible options for content security policy today. I'll fill in what I need to do to get the best practices going, and then I think I'll draw a line under the sand, sort of talk through what I've done, how I messed up, and then we'll come back. So if you give me 5 minutes, I suppose. Yeah, let's all have a 5-minute break. I'll get a refill. I mean, I've still got loads of water left, but I'll get a refill. Check on how everything's doing in the other room. And see you again in about 5 minutes. Is that okay? Yeah? All right. See you in a few. Hey everyone, back again. There we go. Right, let's get this settled in. Let's have a look. Yes, Unreal Wombat, that really is not expensive for a mechanical keyboard, and it's really nice. It's a really nice keyboard to use. Like I say, it does use Cherry MX Blues, so it can be annoying to the people around you because they can be quite loud. I like them, and I mean, I have these on, but these are only providing the audio of what the microphone's picking up. So, I mean, it's louder for me with these headphones on now to use this keyboard. So this keyboard is louder than normal because I have the microphone set up about half a foot away from the keyboard. It's elevated a little. It's not on a special bracket to absorb any, so you can hear when I'm, when I'm tapping stuff, you can hear it. Sorry about that, but you can hear it when I'm tapping stuff. You can hear it when I'm tapping the keys. What you're hearing is exactly what I'm hearing. I've got my headphones plugged into the microphone to give me a direct line of how you're hearing it. So yeah, it's a little bit louder for me normally using these headphones. Then yeah, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement just the methods and extension methods to build the best practices. And then I need to then take a look at the tests that I've written. The tests are all going to be broken. Really, I should have done proper test-driven development, but I didn't. So that's, oh well. So what I need to do is I need to go back to the tests once I've done these next few extension methods, and then I'll draw a line under the sand. I'll then I'll finish off what needs to be finished off offline. And then I'll push the changes up to source control. And then if you guys want to, you can have a look. Let's see what happens. So let's set ourselves a goal of about half an hour. Because I'll be doing this for 2 hours now. It's not a problem. I don't mind doing it for 2 hours. Or rather, this is a 2 hour long stream. So I don't mind that. But let's just see how we do. So we need to do script self and object self. Script source, script source and object source. So let's get rid of this one for now. We're not going to use that one. We're going to get rid of this. We'll keep that one. Oops. Public, static, secure, header configuration, content, security, no, set, CSP, was it self source? Script source. Oh bother. Set CSP script source. So we're going to go this. Secure headers middleware configuration config. And then we're going to pass in a I might be able to get it on there. List string user script. Return config, and then do the same thing here. Pressing the wrong keys. That's the problem with this keyboard. I am in the market for a new mechanical keyboard just for this laptop. So if you do have any suggestions, that would be much appreciated. And it's only because the current keyboard I'm using I use for my desktop as well. So my desktop is off, and I've had to strip the keyboard out. So when I next want to use my desktop, I've got to unplug it from here, plug it into my desktop, which is a shame. But there you go. Content, excuse me, security policy configuration set script source. Bother. This content security policy configuration at this. So the keyword this is a protected one in C# and .NET. You can escape that by using the @ symbol beforehand. That's what that is. Because otherwise I can't do that because it'll tell me that this is a protected keyword. Identifier. So it expects an identifier, and at makes it an identifier. List of string, script source. That needs to be a capital S, and that needs to be a lowercase s. At this dot script source, equals script source, and I'll fix the issue in the method above it in a second. At this. Default source, there we go. So then let's go in here, set script source, now then, since it's the default one, let's take this, right, and create a method which uses the default content security policy, right, where we don't supply these things. Okay, but we go true, true, null, and then we say config dot content security policy configuration dot set default script new list of string self. Yes, that'll work. It's a bit naff that we're sending in a single string wrapped in a list, but it will do. So we can get rid of all of these. We need a little remark. We need a remarks tab. This method sets up a CSP header with, what did we say it was? It was all mixed content blocked, all insecure requests upgraded to HTTPS, and this should be a bulleted list. A script source of self, and then we just need the other, this one, nope, that one, and did we say, so script and object of self, okay, so public static content security policy configuration set object, don't bother, need a space there, set object source, this content, don't bother. That's a strange set of sounds to happen. I'm here by myself today. Dun dun dun. Anyway, list string object source. Return this. And this dot object source equals object source. No, I've pressed the wrong button again. There we go. So then I can go in here. So that's set self, and then config.content security policy configuration.set object. Huh? Object source. Oh, bother. Set object source. New spin. Yep. Well done. New string those self. There's more than likely a much better way of doing that, but there you go. An object source of self. There we go. Whoops. Just copy pasted that there. Oh, just did it again. Save. Right. Okay. So now we have this default content security policy. So I can go like that. Oh, give me it. So Resharper has, Rider has Resharper built in. So I did Command RR then, and I could rename the method and fix the spelling here for it, which is brilliant. So that's cool. So that's those. So yeah, what I was talking about earlier on is this idea of having a wrapper method around the extension methods. So let's just get rid of that window there, because otherwise I can't see what I'm doing. Yes, so there's a wrapper method here. So this calls the two default ones, and then these can be used to call the specific one. So if you need to set a base URI of, that's really useful, because as soon as you implement a content security policy on a website, nothing works. And then you have to go through it step by step, add something to the content security policy, refresh the page, add something to the content security policy, refresh the page. So rather than having anything can run, any script source can run on my machine, it then becomes only any script from any source can run on any. Let me try that again. Any script from any source can run on my website. It then becomes only the scripts from these sources can run on my website. And then as soon as you add a new, any kind of new scripts to your website, everything breaks. But that's not a problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make these no longer public. It makes sense that they would be hidden. No bother. Let's just copy paste, it'd be easier. It makes sense for these not to be visible. Yeah, they can be public. Yes. Okay. So they then need to have the Okay, that will do. Right. Okay. Oh, because it's not. Oh, they need to be public to be able to. Oh, of course. Maybe if they're protected. Nope. Okay. That just okay. I mean, it makes sense, but it's a little annoying. Right. So we now have with cross-site scripting, content security policy. That's it. Content security policy is done. We've just got these two left now. So use permitted cross-domain policy. So let's have a look, see what they default cross-domain policies. So they reckon none. They recommend none. So I'll remember that. What does their description of it mean? Cross-domain policy is an XML document that grants a web client such as Adobe Flash Player or Adobe Acrobat. They're not necessarily limited to these. Permission to handle data across domains. Okay, let's see how we've implemented it in the past. Cross-domain policies. All right. Okay, so there wasn't a Okay. Right. In that case, let's make this into an enum. Got none, master only. Okay. by content type, by file type name, all. File type, FTP file type. Let's have a look at that one. Yeah, it was just like that, and then I have an instance of it. So this needs to be, no option value, it needs to be permitted cross domain option value. X permitted cross domain option value. There we go. And then we're going to have public X. There we go. Create a private, protected because we don't need the default constructor, we want to pass a value in. So public permitted cross domain policy configuration, X permitted option value, X permitted option value. So delete that, and then case return case. Oh, hello AWOPL. Welcome to the stream. You've joined just as I'm starting to put the ending stuff together, but please stick around. This is the boring bit, really. What I'm doing is I'm taking master only. I'm taking a return master only. So I'm taking a .NET Core. Sorry, I keep doing that. I'm taking an ASP.NET Core middleware application, a class library that I've created, and converting it from using a settings JSON file to using a builder pattern. I'll go through it all in a moment. Again, it's not a problem because there'll be people that are joining and stuff. It's not a problem. So I'll go through what I'm actually doing in a moment. I just want to finish off what I'm doing here, and then I'll do a quick recap if that's okay. Case by content type. File type, and then there's one more that says all. can say that no all code paths return a value. Return statement is missing. Nope, because that doesn't return a string. Bother. Okay. Put that there. Goodness, break. There we go. There we go. And then get rid of that break there and get rid of that line break there. Okay, so middleware builder. So we want to say public static secure headers middleware configuration. Use, what's this last one called? Whoop. Permitted cross domain policies. Permitted cross domain policies. Haha. This secure middleware configuration config, and it's going to be an X permitted cross domain policy value, X permitted domain value. Got to go all the way back over here because I've got a big font. Oh wow, that's a very big font. Equals none because that's the default value. Oh goodness, that's a long line. Okay. Config dot permitted configuration equals new permitted configuration, and we're going to pass in the X permitted value. Brilliant. Weird. I tell you, that's really weird. I'm the only person in the house today. I keep hearing that's like knocking and stuff. I think it's from next door, if I'm honest. Yeah, it will be from next door. So that one, I'm going to call use that. Brilliant. Okay, so now that I've got that written up, because otherwise I'd have forgotten, what I'm doing for the benefit of AWO_PL is I'm taking, if I just bring my window across, I'm taking this application, this class library, OwaspHeaders.Core, which is one of my NuGet packages, and it's a ASP.NET Core middleware application that adds the OWASP recommended secure headers to all HTTP responses that are generated by an ASP.NET Core application. And you can find, I don't know, can you scroll back up through the comments, through the chat? Does the chat history show up? Hopefully it does. If it does not, then this is, the library that I'm working on. I'm working on issue number 14. Oh, wonderful, the build status image isn't there. Yeah, I'm working on issue number 14, which is so the source as it stands on GitHub right now currently uses a JSON file for its configuration, and I'm moving towards a fluent API style builder pattern. I've still got a lot of work to do. I'm not going to get it all done in this stream, but I want to get the basics done and then maybe spend 20 minutes looking at the tests and seeing if I can fix them. And then what I'll do is offline, I'll fix the rest of the code, make it look a little bit better, and then I'll put it up on GitHub for everyone to have a look at. I'll end up sending a tweet round or something that for when the new code goes up. So yeah, so that's so that you know what we're doing. I don't know whether you'd seen it earlier on. That one. So we're on permitted cross domain policies. That's pretty cool. So I can get rid of that now. Oh, look at that last one, referrer policy. So let's have a look. So what I'm doing is the application itself, the middleware itself, uses the OWASP secure headers project information. And OWASP is the open web standard for open web Application Standards Project, sorry, Open Web Application Standard Project. And they are all about making web applications and desktop applications more secure. So they have on their website, OWASP, they have a whole bunch of wonderful recommendations for making your apps more secure. Because let's face it, everyone, security is the last thing that we think of as developers. You know, we're more involved in getting the application started and getting it up and running. A lot of their response headers are all included in my middleware. And they have on this page, the Secure Headers project, they have the headers that are listed, compatibility matrices for different browsers, and a bunch of other stuff, and the best practices. So I've been implementing them, and the previous version of, or rather the current version of OwaspHeaders.Core that is currently on NuGet uses, where are we? So it uses a, oh, well, that's the wrong folder. So it uses a secure header JSON, which is fine. But if you look into things like app settings and stuff like that, when one of those, when you change the JSON file, it restarts the server, which is no good. And since oh, my browser's doing that weird thing again. Since the secure headers should be I think perhaps the battery in the mouse is running out. Let's have a look. Oh, 34%. Weird. Since the secure headers for a web server should always be sort of, you know, it's the way I see it, it's a compile time thing. It's not a runtime thing. It's a compile time thing. So you set it once, you run the server, and it's done. So that's why I'm changing this up. So if I go back over to here. So we're on referrer policy, and there's lots of options here. Let's have a look at what their recommended best practices are. Excuse me, for the referrer policy. Oh, right, they don't have a recommended value for it. That's okay, that's fine. That means that they haven't gotten around to do it. I'm going to go with no referrer because that's my... So I'll put a comment in this one saying referrer information sent to the referrer header should be included in the request made. Right, so the referrer header will be omitted completely. No referrer information will be sent along with the request. That makes sense. Okay, so let's have a look, see how we've implemented it before. So what I'm doing is I'm doing this where I'm create a builder, use these values, and then build, which is pretty cool. I'll probably end up... Maybe I'll end up making a different... No, doesn't matter. Right, so I bet this will probably just be hard-coded. Yep. Okay, that's fine. So I need to create a public enum referrer. Whoops. Pretty terrible at spelling, if I'm honest. Options. And these are no referrer, I guess. No referrer, no referrer in downgrade origin. Okay, so no when downgrade. And this is origin when cross origin. Origin when cross origin. I'm not going to bother with spaces at the moment just yet. Same origin, because ReSharper and Rider are about to do it all for me. Same origin, strict when cross origin, and unsafe. Origin. I've forgotten all of those already. Strict when cross. So strict. Whoops. When cross origin, and then unsafe URL. There we go. Right, so this is not going to be that anymore. This is going to be policy option, public referrer policy options, referrer policy option. One of those called that get set. Whoops. protected, whoops, yep, protected referrer policy. That's kind of annoying that it does that because I want that on that line. Public. They're really, really loud next door, aren't they? Referrer policy options. Referrer policy option. This, oh no, I don't need that. Referrer policy option. Yeah, with a capital R. Huh. Copy that one. Here we go. And the same thing here that I just did for the other one. Oh, switch on referrer policy option. This is what we call in my line of work busy work, in that you're really only just sort of yeah, we'll return from there. We don't, oh, we can't return value. Oh yeah, okay. Right. Referrer policy option, there we go. And in case, oh, this is going to take a while. Return no referrer. Is that how you spell it? No referrer. Yeah, okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that one like that because that's a lot of stuff. I'll put a to do in to finish that off. So public static secure headers configuration use referrer policy. This secure headers configuration config. Let's give it a name. Tab across. There we go. This, nope. Config.referrer policy equals new referrer policy and pass in the referrer policy option. We'll return the config. Return config. Do I still have the private one? Because I don't need it. I definitely don't need it. Yeah, I don't need it. Oh no, that. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And then I just go use referrer policy. Oh, I just collapsed something then. Don't know what that was. Huh, okay, yep. And then that's that done. Ace. So what I need to do is I can now delete that file because I don't need it. That's now set up. This is now set up, so let's run the tests. I'm not expecting this to run, but let's see what happens. Tools. Nope. How do I run the tests? Test Explorer, unit tests, here we go. Really? X unit run a Visual Studio. Okay, let's do that then. X unit run a Visual Studio. Manage NuGet packages for this one. Not sure I want the beta, but 2.3. Yeah, that'll do. Add. That's not even what I clicked on. That's annoying. 2.3. What? Why is that happening? That was weird. Did you just see that? Down here. Okay, when you're watching on demand on YouTube, watch that whole section again. That was weird. And it ignored what I chose anyway and installed the beta version. Fantastic. Okay. That's brilliant. There are 0 tests in this. Are there really? That's not the solution. No, don't run the test from the solution. Run the tests from here. Oh, we'll go away then. Right. I should be able to right click and run the tests in here. Run unit tests. Here we go. Right, I'm expecting things to fall over straight away. I'm not expecting this to work. And the reason being, if I scroll down a bit, it's checking for the presence of these particular default values, and I've changed the default values to use the recommended values from OWASP. So I'm expecting a lot of these to fail. They all passed, so that's good. Yes, that's an that is, let's take a HTS, let's take that one for example, the HSTS one. I've hard coded what I'm expecting the value to be. Oh hey Foster Brandon, welcome to the stream. You've just witnessed me running tests that I expected, or you've just missed me running tests that I expected to fail and was really geared up for them to fail and for me to have to do loads of work, and then they all passed. So that's brilliant. So I'm going to say that is because of all of you guys watching. You've made all my tests pass. So that's fantastic. But right, so let's look at the use HSTS test, right? That uses this hard-coded value of 3153600 and includes subdomains. So if I go to here and I go use HSTS, go to declaration. So my tests don't work. My tests don't work. That's a shame. Let's do that and we'll debug this test. Either my code doesn't work or the test doesn't work. That's why. Of course. Right, hang on. No, I know why. I know why that didn't work. Right, okay. So, in the example project, which is an ASP.NET Core MVC app, we've been telling it to use our default configuration. We're saying go and get the default configuration, which is brilliant. What we've done in the tests, however, is we've said, go create me a new secure headers middleware configuration, which if you go to it, the constructor sets all of these things to false, which when you look at the tests, what we do, we pass the secure header middleware in, we say go invoke the thing, go get me the next step in the middleware. Then we say, if this is true, which it's not because it's false, so we skip over that. If it's false, we say, is that header present? It's not, so we say, make sure that header is not present. It is not, so it passes. So that is a big problem. Headers middleware builder dot Now, hang on. I want that one. Don't want the builder. I want that one. Let's do that. Secure header middleware extensions dot build me the default configuration, which is what all my tests should now be using. This will fail because the default configuration uses true for this, but 6,500 something for that. So if I run my tests again, they're all going to fail. Run those tests. I know at least one is going to fail. I know the HSTS one is going to fail. So it's built. And here we go. I'm expecting one to fail. Okay. So security transport header failed. Yes. So we've said we want this value 3153600 to be in the header, but we've got 6307220 whatever, and that's because if you remember when I did build default configuration, that calls use HSTS, which sets up a value of 6307200. So let's put that into our hard-coded string for getting the value back, rerun the tests, and they shall now all pass. Which means I can do an internal quality check on this, add the comments that are needed, add the remaining methods that I don't need but other people might when they consume this, and then release it. But I'll do those separate to the stream because yes, look at that. Absolute success. Great success. High five, everyone. Yes. And if you didn't high five the screen, then maybe you should. So let's do that again. High five, everyone. Fantastic. Great work, everybody. We've got this working now. So that's brilliant. Right. So what we've done here is we used a little bit of background knowledge from the previous stream that I've done today, which should be on YouTube now. So if you search YouTube for app settings.json, let's have a look, see where it is. So what I do, because I'm not logged into anything in this browser, and I don't want to log into anything, because then I'll start getting messages from people and emails and stuff. If I go to YouTube and type onion architecture, which seems to be one of my more famous YouTube videos, which is good because I've got a lot of stupid YouTube videos out there. Click on me, you'll get taken to my channel, which has this unfortunate URL, which I'm not going to copy paste because, well, if you like and subscribe and I get enough subscribers, sorry, I dropped a cable. If you all like and subscribe and I get enough subscribers and enough views, I can change the name of it. So like and subscribe, please. Now that bit's done, if you go to videos, it should be listed. It's not listed yet. Okay, it is there. I think it goes up default as a private video. But because presumably if you're watching this live, you're in Twitch. If you click somewhere, I don't know where, one of these directions, there'll be the previous stream that I've done where I talked about app settings.json and how that all works, which was what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about that because that's part of the issue with, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to change this to have a fluent API, and I'm glad that I have now. So I'll make that publicly available after this video is going up live, because I'm not logging in and showing you my admin screens. Where are we? 46, 1000. Cool. So I'll make that publicly live as soon as I've finished on this. I'll put together some show notes and then I'll put up a page. But the point I was driving at earlier on is, so what I've done is I've taken I've taken OwaspHeaders.Core, which is my open source project, which did use a JSON file to do some stuff. I've replaced the JSON file with a builder pattern, and the builder pattern now works flawlessly, as you've seen. I do need to make some changes to the builder because it's not optimal, but the first pass, what is it? There's a Stephen King quote about getting your first draft out. That's the most important part. Get the first draft out, get it down, do a brain dump, get the idea down on paper or on a word processor, in code files, whatever. And then when you're done with that, then refactor it. Go back and have a look at how you can change stuff, how you can do stuff. Yes. Whilst I was saying all of that, the Walrus just posted something in the chat, and that was, aren't those conditionals in the assertions dangerous? If somebody changes the default value or disables a header and then it breaks something later, but no test will fail. That is very true. I'm not going to deny that is very, very true. So what we're getting at is these assertions here, because they use hard-coded strings. Yes, they are very dangerous. However, these tests are for making sure that they're not tests. They're unit tests to be run at development time rather than runtime. They are currently tests to make sure that the headers have been injected correctly in a test environment, in the development environment, rather than in a live environment. So the ifs. Oh right, yeah. Sorry, yeah. You are indeed right. Yeah, these conditionals are indeed dangerous. Yes, the ifs. So yeah. Well, the Walrus has just said yes. It's the ifs around them that are dangerous, as you saw. I mean, you guys just saw that. I don't know whether you saw that earlier on when I ran the tests, and I was using, so when I do new secure header, I can prove exactly what the Walrus is saying there. So if I set the new a new thing, right, and I go to declaration, what this does is it sets a bunch of falses. That's false, right? Which means that this if here will return false, so we fall into the else. Now, if someone goes ahead and somehow injects that header into the response anyway, that else is going to fail. So what I need to do is I need to come up with slightly better tests so that, yes, I only want this if to fire if that is true, but I also want to be able to do a negative test. So I want to do an if for if this is included, if we're using HSTS, then check that the values are present. I'll need to come up with a better way of checking that the values are present. And I also need to do a separate test. If HSTS is not set to true, if it is set to false, check that the HSTS header has not been set. So yes, these should be two separate tests, and definitely, that should not be included as a string. You're definitely right there. So if I undo this, but for now, as a way of checking that my extension methods work and add things, I believe that it will do. What's this? Oh right, I've added a bookmark. Well done me. I believe that for now it will do. I'm not going to commit this without writing better unit tests, and I may even do a stream next week where I do better unit tests. I've just signed myself up to something there, haven't I? But I may end up doing something in a future video where I write better unit tests. I think what I need to do for this is I need to go away and design a unit test around these. But you are definitely right, the Walrus. If somebody changes a default value to disable a header, and yeah, then the tests will fail, but I want them to fail. But what I'm doing here, the problem is that I'm doing the else check. I check that out. If I take that out, so if I did, if I took this as two separate tests, what did I just do? I think I just moved everything. Yeah, so if I take this, create a separate test, header is not present. What we're going to do is, if that is not, get rid of this, assert not equal, whoops. So we want to assert false. So I have now have a test that says if it is there. So if this value is there, assert true. If it's not there, assert false. It's a little bit better, but it's not brilliant. Yeah, like I said, I need to go away and I need to rethink how I do these tests because they're not 100% stable. Is how I would describe them. But yes, so they are now, that's now done. Oh, I feel so warm and fuzzy. Ooh, that is a better idea. Yes, the Walrus makes a really good point. Create a new config for each test. So in this, so instead of creating a single config here that is created, instead of creating a config here, do it there. So we would have, so it would have the specific values that we want. So this is, the header is present, header is not present. So this would be header present config equals secure headers middleware builder dot start builder dot use HSTS dot build. Whoops. That's a method. Build like that, and then instead of doing that, we would do header present config, and then in this one, this would be header not present config equals secure headers configuration builder dot start builder build. So the way that I've written the builder is unless you call use HSTS, it will not be present. There we go. That's a little more stable. Thank you very much. You really, really are right there, the Walrus. Yes, by creating a new config for every single test that says this config is for this particular test, that makes it a lot more stable. Yes. So yeah, maybe I can offline write a whole bunch of tests that fix those. So if I take that out, we want to mock the tests at every single point. So that would be header present config. That would be was it not header not present config, and then I can fix the rest of these. So yeah, that would make more sense. Oh, thank you, Walrus. So the Walrus has said, nice clear walkthrough of the issue. And I think it's more a case of the pair of us working together on that one. But yeah, thank you. My goodness, yeah. So this is, so yeah, I'll go through and I'll fix these tests and then I'll commit those to source control, and then I'll think a little bit more about the other ways in which the tests can be broken. And then I'll fix some stuff. That's probably my Saturday evening, if I'm honest, because it's now, what time is it now in the UK? So over in the UK where I am, it's now 5 PM. So I reckon I could get this ready to be committed to source control by about 8. I want to do some tidying up and add loads of comments. But yeah, cool. Well, thank you all for sticking with me. My goodness, this has been a long stream. What are we now? We're now 3 hours and 10 minutes. The YouTube version is going to be a little shorter because I'm going to cut out, there's a section where I had a 5-minute break. I'm going to cut that out when that goes up to YouTube. So if you're watching YouTube, it's not 3 hours and 10 minutes yet, but it might be. I'm also going to see if I can do something about the choppiness of the video. I feel like it's my internet connection that's the problem. because I can see in the, so I'm using OBS, and in the bottom right hand corner, so yeah, down here somewhere, in the bottom right hand corner, it tells me the speed at which it's able to upload, and it hasn't gone higher than 1,300 kilobits a second, and that's the internet speed that I have. But that's, I mean, it's not a huge issue. If it does end up causing an issue, then I'll still stream to Twitch, but I'll record locally as well, and then just upload the recorded version, which has no issues. So there you go. Cool. Right. So that's me done for the evening. I'm going to be fixing this. Thank you all for joining in, and if you're watching on demand, thank you all for watching on demand. I like doing these. I like sort of sitting and talking out, because so when I write code anyway, I sit and I talk out loud. So I figure I may as well share the experience of me doing this, because even if you drop in and drop out, there might be something that you might think, oh, well, why is he doing this? Oh, well, he's talking about why he's doing it, or I can ask him a question, you know what I mean? Or you can say, hey, that's really stupid. Like, well, I mean, the walrus didn't say it was really stupid, but the walrus in the chat said, pointed out a big issue with my tests, and I hadn't even thought about it properly. So thank you for that. Yes. So seriously, thank you all for watching. Oh my god, I'm so bad at goodbyes. But thank you all for watching. Keep an eye out for the show notes that I'll put out. They'll be on the website. If you look over here in the video, if my finger is in the right place, you should see a URL to the website. Go check that out. I'll put the show notes up on there once the video goes up to YouTube, and I will catch you all again. If you're on YouTube, check in the comments below. There'll be a link to the page that's on this website for the show notes. I won't have the full show notes because there's pointless copy pasting, so just go over to the website to get the show notes. And like and subscribe, I guess. If you liked it, like it. If you want to see more of these, subscribe. The more subscribers I have, the more excuse I have to make more of these videos. And I will make more of these videos. I really don't mind. I want to make loads of these videos, and I want to show off. Even if I don't get anything done, I'd like to still talk to you guys and gals and friends beyond the binary. I would like to still talk to you all about how I'm doing this and why I'm doing this. Like with my open source projects, I like to say, this is a thing I'm working on, and this is how I'm going to do it, because then there might be some tiny nugget of information that you go, oh, that's brilliant, I wish I knew that before. It's all about spreading the knowledge and waffling uncontrollably, apparently. So that's cool. What I will say, though, is one last thing. If you are, I'm not doing this as a shill for the podcast, but I mentioned earlier on in the episode that I do a podcast. And I use the microphone. That's how I got to when I was talking about how I have the headphones on. The headphones are connected to the microphone to give me direct line of what you're hearing, so I know what the volumes are. So I would recommend the Waffling Tailors, the gaming waffles of the tailors. The short version is Waffling Tailors. If you're into video gamey type stuff, because we do video gamey type stuff, or we talk about video gamey type stuff. I'll just get you a URL for that because it's cool. So if I go like that, it's going to take a moment to load apparently, but that's because of my shoddy internet connection. I can't down and up at the same time. So wafflingtailors.rocks put out a blog post today. We've got a podcast that we do. It's all about video games though. So if you're not into video games, then don't do it. I'm just pointing out the places where you can find stuff that I do. So, my main hub for all of my stuff is gaprogman.com. It'll load in a second. Like I say, I can't down and up at the same time. And it's not terribly well designed, but this is where you can go to find out all sorts of stuff about me. I've got a couple blogs, got links to stuff. Go check it out. Like I say, it's not very well designed. But there's also there's an Easter egg in the page. I'm not saying that gives the game away, but there's two Easter eggs in the page. Let me know with a tweet if you find them. Okay. You can dig through the source, but I think it would be better if you think about stuff. Like I'm into video games, so maybe it's a video game thing. Is there like a code that video games use that a lot of common older video games use? I'm into older video games, you know. So yeah, if you find one of the two Easter eggs, send me a tweet and let me know, and then I'll let me know if you find them. Right. So yes. So we together, all of us together, have rebuilt this code, which is brilliant. Yes, I've done most of the typing, and yes, I've done most of the talking, but it's the fact that we've worked together to do it. So thank you all, everyone, for sort of being here and helping spur me on. It's been a very long video. We're now at 3 hours and 16 minutes on the live stream. So it'll be about 3 hours and 12 minutes, I guess, on YouTube. So thank you very much for sticking around. Thank you very much for showing up. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much for watching all the way to the end. I will catch you all again another time, I guess. Take it easy, and I will see you another time. Thanks very much for watching. Like and subscribe. You don't have to. I'm just saying it. But if you want to, if it's nice and you liked it, give it a little thumbs up. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. Also check out the YouTube page as well. I'll put a link in the chat. Actually, I'll do that now. Before I sign off, let's put a link in the chat. Onion architecture. I always do this because, like I say, I'm not logged in and I'm not very good at remembering GUIDs. So I search for onion architecture to find me. So I copy that. So if you all check if you're on Twitch now, watching on Twitch, if you check the chat, there's now a link to my YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm not going to link you to YouTube because you're already there. If you're watching through an embedded player on the website, just click on hover on the video, click on the title of the video. It will take you through to the video on YouTube and you'll be on the channel. Okay, cool. Right. I shall catch you all down the line. You've been amazing and I've been slightly good too. So I will catch you later. Bye.